Good to see everybody. Welcome back to Walks on Wall Street. Hope you all are doing well. It's Tuesday. It's February 7th, 2023. It is about 8:45 p.m. here, live from New York City. Now, tonight is a very big night for all of us here in the United States, but I think globally as well. Tonight will be the State of the Union address. So President Joe Biden will be speaking live at 9 o'clock tonight. I think you could watch the live stream for free on YouTube, and it probably is going to be broadcast across all of the local news channels. So I would highly recommend watching that. The live stream is probably going to go over into Joe Biden's State of the Union address, but I think there's going to be a lot of good things in there to pay attention to. Joe Biden is probably going to talk about the economy. He is probably going to be talking about this big jobs number that we just got, which we're going to talk about tonight on the stream. Now, the last non-farm payrolls report was really good. It was pretty eye-opening too. We added about 517,000 jobs, but I think there's a little bit more to that report that we need to talk about, which we are going to talk about tonight on the live stream. Now, the unemployment rate did drop again to 3.4%. That is the lowest unemployment in the United States since 1969. But I think we also need to talk about the labor force participation rate, which we will get into a little bit later on the stream. So tech stocks are having a little bit of a rally. Dollar has been very, very weak up until the past couple days. Now, everybody take a look at the Dixie. I do have the computer up, so let's take a look at that now. The past 2 trading days, we have had a monster move, 50-day moving average. Hold on, I think the internet may be a little spotty here. Anyway, also 103 billion from 2021. So not good there. We'll talk about it. We're also going to talk about Microsoft. We are going to talk about Alphabet or Google as they compete on the artificial intelligence front. And then we'll wrap up the night. So let me go ahead, pack up my stuff, and we should be good. We had the internet guy come in actually today in this WeWorks. I saw them. Now, I think the rumor is we may be switching to Google Fiber. Not sure though. Let me just make sure I got my key card so I can get back in the office. I do. All right, team, let's head out. Now, we didn't check futures, but I don't think it's that important. I don't think futures are going to move too much tonight, although depending on how, I would say bad, let's say bad or good, I'm trying to be apolitical here. The State of the Union address is, maybe we could see a little bit of movements in the futures market, but I think as of right now, I did post on Twitter, we do have all of the major equity indices slightly down to flat, so not too big of a deal. Let's see who we have in the chat. I see my good friend Wendy England. I see Sally, Mike C. What's up? Let's hold that thought. Let's actually get downstairs. I think we're going to walk to Billionaires Road tonight. We might as well head all the way up there to 57th Street. Dr. Longiz, what's up? Good to see you. Hey, man. Take it easy. Have a good one. East 31st Street. Let me try to fix the internet. Okay, we are live on the corner of East 31st Street and Madison Avenue. I think it's about 48 degrees tonight in New York. It's actually not bad out at all. Now, I did fly in out of Fort Lauderdale. Yesterday, I landed at LaGuardia Airport. Now, usually I go into John F. Kennedy, but it was a little bit cheaper to fly into LaGuardia. And guys, I do have to give the city of New York a major compliment. LaGuardia Airport is beautiful. They totally redid the entire thing. I'm not sure if anybody in the chat has flown into LaGuardia as of late, but it's really nice. They did a really good job. So I think that's what I may do moving forward. Now, as you know, my place in Miami, it's about equidistant between Fort Lauderdale / Hollywood International Airport, as well as Miami. I found it a little bit easier to fly out of Fort Lauderdale for this reason, and pretty much this reason alone. Now, we had the airlines report, so I think this will be just an interesting pre-topic to what we're going to talk about tonight. But I usually fly American Airlines, right? I'm usually pretty loyal about which airline I fly. I used to just fly the cheapest, but I think it's better just to stick with one airline. So I finally tried Delta. I tried Delta out of Fort Lauderdale, and there's free Wi-Fi now on the flights, which is fantastic. And they have the Delta Sky Lounge there, and it's just much, much easier, I've found. Now, LaGuardia Airport's fantastic. The only downside, especially for me, since I live out east on Long Island, is there's really no public transportation. I mean, I shouldn't say there's no public transportation, but it's not like John F. Kennedy Airport where you could take the air train to Jamaica and then you transfer to the LIRR. You need to take the bus. So the bus was a little bit cumbersome, but it wasn't too bad. So I think my airline of choice now, everybody, is going to be Delta. I think it's just too good to have free Wi-Fi on the flight. Hey, Sunset Blue, what's up? Good to see you. Says Tom, Uber is like $40 to Manhattan. I think it's more than that, honestly. I think if you get an Uber from JFK or LaGuardia, I think it's going to be a lot more than $40, but I definitely see your point. I see my buddy E. Smith is here. Says, hey, Tom, what's up? Good to see you. Smee Media is here. Says, yeah, LaGuardia is like taking the bus. Abdullah is here. Welcome. August Ice. Julia M. Good to see you. Marcelo Gill. Always a pleasure. Marcelo is joining us from Brazil. Yeah, it feels like we haven't done one of these live streams in quite a long time. I think a lot of you guys thought I was abducted by the China spy balloon, but I could guarantee that is not the case. Now, I was a little bit, we'll sort of jump into that because, you know, obviously tonight starting at 9 is going to be the State of the Union address. It's actually in a couple minutes here. You can watch it live on YouTube, but I think it's going to be very important for markets. So we'll cover it a little bit. Now, when I first heard the news of the China spy balloon, I think I had the reaction of that everybody had, right? Which is ultimately, you got to shoot it down, and you should shoot it down in haste almost. But after, you know, we got more data, I actually think the Biden administration did the right thing. Now, I try to be as fair and balanced as possible, and since all of the data came out now that says, look, this thing was weighing thousands and thousands of pounds, if we shot that down over the United States, I mean, imagine all that debris raining down on somebody's house. That's definitely not safe. Also, additionally, some updates from the Pentagon. It seems as if we were able to jam all of the specific signals. So the balloon was pretty much just floating over the United States, not performing any sort of reconnaissance. So I think actually we did the right thing. You know, we shot it down over the ocean, over the Atlantic Ocean, and now the military can, you know, harness the balloon or do whatever they got to do and maybe study it. But, you know, I think since all of the data came out, I think we actually did the right thing. And, you know, this reminds me of one of my sort of decision-making rules. And here's one of the biggest things I've learned in my life so far. And whenever there's a major news event, right, it could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, around the military or anything, but just any major event that's getting everybody really, really riled up. This is the One Vanderbilt building, by the way. We're actually going to make a left here, though. But anytime you have a big news story that everybody is getting very riled up about, it's actually best to wait about a week. And I know that seems a long time, but it's best to wait about a week for any material, I would say, conclusions to be drawn, because I like to call it the fog of war phase, where there's a lot of fake news being thrown around, there's a lot of he said, she said, nobody really knows anything, and at the end of the day, and I was texting my friend who is in the military, He's like, look, at the end of the day, we have the best intelligence in the entire world. We have the best military in the entire world. And I think they got it handled, right? So I think that's, I don't know, the choice of action that I'm sticking with. I don't think the Pentagon and the military would be like, yeah, let's just let this balloon gather intelligence all willy-nilly. I think they got a grip on it, especially, or more so than I have a grip on it. So I think it was a cause for concern, but now that we have the data out, I think it's going to be fine. Here we are outside the Empire State Building, looking absolutely stunning today. This is the corner of 5th Avenue and 34th Street. Now, even though it's not that cold, I'm still adjusting to the temperatures here in the city. I'm used to walking around in 80-degree weather. When I was in Miami for 2 weeks, almost every single day was 80 degrees and bright sunshine. So my body is still adapting to the 40s. Hey, TC is here, says, well said, Tom. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get, hyperbolic over it and emotional over it. But at the end of the day, I mean, look at our defense budget in the United States, right? Think about all the billions. I was about to say millions of dollars. Think about all the billions of dollars we spend as Americans on defense. And you really don't think that we sort of had the joy. Miami? Good to see you, Dusty. Edward Adams says, yes, welcome back, Tom. Good to see you, Edward. Sam Rangano, welcome. Tom AK. William Brooklyn says, checking in. Hope everybody is having a great night. Thank you for tuning in. Robert says, yeah, the defense budget for 2023 was $797 billion. Think about that for a moment. Now that we're talking about budgets and spending and trade, here's actually a piece of data that is a major, major cause for concern, at least to me, at least. Now, we just got the deficit numbers out, and the U.S. trade deficit has ballooned to about $950 billion in 2022. That is up $103 billion from 2021. So, I mean, if we could add $103 billion to our trade deficit in a year, that is a major, major cause for concern for me. Marcelo Gills is Biden to call for higher taxes on billionaires, stock buybacks. Why? Well, I think we already have the 1% excise tax, don't we? On all new share repurchase programs. I'll give you guys one more shot of the Empire. Let me know if we're having any wind noise in the microphone. I was outside all day today. There was no wind, but now I'm feeling a little bit of the wind, so maybe we're getting some wind noise in the mic. That's the only reason why I didn't put in the microphone, because I'm like, wow, it's actually not windy out. Usually at night the wind starts to pick up. Hey, Western Mass Dave, what's up, man? Good to see you. Dr. Longus says nobody in America should worry about China or the Russian military. We are way more advanced and equipped. I think I agree about 90% with that. I think I agree about 90%, but what's really getting me a little bit concerned here is the escalation of this war in Ukraine. That is, as we talk about markets and as we tie this back to markets, and we've sort of been over this concept of a black swan event. I think if we were to have a black swan event, I think it would be in and around that war, that conflict in Ukraine. Now, here's the thing. It seems like, and I don't know if this may be a controversial statement, but I'm not sure if everybody is really caught up on a lot of the news, especially the news flow that's going on here in New York City with all of the migrants. It is a huge mess, okay? A huge mess here with, the migrants having no place to go. I think they're sleeping in some terminal in Brooklyn. And we have all this money, right? It seems like every day I get a notification on my phone, literally every day, multi-billion-dollar weapons package to Ukraine, more weapons, more war, more killing, more money for, bombs and all this crazy stuff. But every day, on the news, I also see, record homelessness, record people, labor force participation rates still below the 2020 COVID pandemic. We have homelessness here in America, especially in major cities like New York, San Francisco, even Miami, right? And we never seem to have money for just regular people, it seems. But we always have money for, drones, bombs, weapons, just whatever. And I'm not trying to be too political, but it's almost just like strange. It's almost like we don't really know the value of billions of dollars anymore. I mean, I'm sure you guys have gotten these, notifications too on your phone. It's like I wake up and it's like, hey, Congress just approved another $3 billion, $4 billion, $5 billion for bombs, tanks. But when it comes to regular people who are struggling, or the housing crisis we have in America and homelessness, it seems as if we're very frugal and pinch pennies. It's kind of strange. Anyway, team, we are here at Herald Square. We have a beautiful shot of One Vanderbilt lit up all blue tonight. But it seems as if the Empire State Building is in its classic, sort of like a goldish white color, which is pretty good. Not bad. We were outside of Macy's. I think the last time we were here doing the live streams, they were just taking down all of the holiday stuff here. Hey, Dan Zhang says, Tom, as a Chinese American myself, I can honestly tell you that Chinese government is only good at lying to its people domestically and bluffing during press conferences. It doesn't have the experience to conduct a war, says Dan Zhang. Well, that's some good information there. Look, I think, Dan, you could probably provide more context to this. And, I think the last comment I'll make on the spy balloon is when we shot it down, which I think, the Biden administration did the right thing here and shot it down over the water, and they're going to collect all of that debris and do research on it. The Chinese government comes out and says, we reserve the right to, retaliate or do whatever. It's like, bro, you're floating the balloon over our country. We reserve the right to shoot it down. So it's, I don't know. It's a good point. Hey, Shady Copper. Good to see you, my friend. Zozo Bob says Biden is being introduced now. Yeah, it's, when I get on the Long Island Railroad, I'm probably going to watch a replay of the State of the Union address. I think it's important to check it out. Got the FDNY here. Hey, Preston984, good to see you. Hope you're well. Palmetti's is here. Lou T. Williams, welcome. Now, not to get into too much, I guess, conspiracy, but if you really think about it, and I always use this, one of the strategies I use is follow the money, right? Follow the money. And if you think about our system, our economic system, it is a debt-based economic system, right? And we talk about this as it relates to monetary policy and fiscal policy, but when you really think about it, right, the only way our system can sustain itself is if we just continuously borrow from the future in perpetuity forever, right? I mean, if you really think about it, because if we do not continue to issue more debt, right, and find things to spend money on, right? Hence, you could think about military-industrial complex. If you don't want to get, too, I guess, conspiracy there, we may get taken down. But if you think about, from an economic standpoint, wars, and it's really cringy to say this, but it can pull a country out of economic downturn. It's almost good for the economy. It's spending, it's more money, it's borrowing. And, we live in this debt-based economic system where it seems as if we can just print money, print money, print money. And it's almost as if we don't want to ever pay the debt off. It's not designed for the debt to ever be paid back. It's just to manage the debt and service the debt. And we could get into a whole conversation about the Federal Reserve and so on and so on. But, it seems like these wars serve a purpose for that. TCs to just print more money. That's what they've been doing since 2007. Well, we did hear from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. And one of the things Fed Chair Jerome Powell, also Neil Kashkari, did anybody see the interview? I think it was today, actually, on CNBC. One of the main Fed presidents, Neil Kashkari, did an interview, and they were talking about the Fed balance sheet. Now, here on Walks on Wall Street, we always talk about the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, and it's really made up of two main things, right? I would say, U.S. Treasuries, so Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. And one of the things that they continue to say, they continue to harp on, not only the Fed chair, but many of the Fed presidents, is that we are working to contract the size of the balance sheet, right? So if we think about liquidity, right, and there's two main things that I think that drive markets. Earnings, obviously, but also liquidity. And the Fed can provide liquidity by buying those treasuries, buying agency mortgage-backed securities. And even though the Fed balance sheet there's a little bit of a runoff of the Fed balance sheet. The Fed balance sheet is going down. I think I think they could be doing more. But when Fed Chair Jerome Powell was asked about, selling mortgage-backed securities and accelerating that pace, he's like, no, we're not really thinking about that at all. Yeah, we wouldn't think about that yet at all. It's not necessary. So, and again, not to sort of go tangential here and go off on a tangent, but this is why I always say, if you want to look for or try to be aware of like the big sell-off, the big event, right? And there's been a lot of notable figures on Wall Street coming out and saying there's going to be a big market crash on this date, and this time, right? There's a lot of those calls coming out right now. You don't look to the stock market to decipher that. You look at the debt market, right? The big one where stocks will crater 50% will not start in the stock market. It's going to start in the debt market. When there's an uncontrolled sell-off in the debt market, this is a beautiful shot of One Vanderbilt right here. This is actually Bryant Park, the Winter Village. I think it's starting to rain a little bit. But when you look at the debt market, it's going to start with an uncontrolled sell-off in the debt market. And if we think about the relationship between bonds and yields, when bonds start to sell off, what happens to yields, right? Yields have an inverse correlation to the bond price. So when you have this huge waterfall blow up or sell off in the debt market, you have yields spiking. And cash will just move from one entity to another. And I think when that happens, money will move out of the stock market. It'll move out of the debt market and into things like precious metals, commodities, depending on your stance on cryptocurrencies, maybe into Bitcoin, things like that. Hey, Steph UH, what's up? Says, oh, wow. So Steph says, my dad served in World War II, Korea and Vietnam, hated the military-industrial complex at the end. Well, Steph UH, thank him for his service. I really appreciate that, and I mean that. Thank you so much for that. I'll give you guys one more shot of the... Is it the Winter Village still open? Maybe we'll have to go in and check it out. Oh, Western Mass Dave's, Tom, we want to hear about the New York Stock Exchange. Right. So, guys, I mean, how could I forget? I was going to tell you guys, but... So, yesterday, I had an unbelievable opportunity. Here, let's cross here. So, yesterday, Envela Corporation, ticker symbol ELA, they were so kind to invite me to attend the closing bell ceremony. And it was by far, I mean, my God, by far one of the coolest, definitely top 3 coolest experiences of my life. I've always wanted to go to the New York Stock Exchange. Unfortunately, I mean, you guys know, after 9/11, they actually closed it to the public. I guess for obvious reasons, right? I get that. But I always wanted to go in and I never got to. I was too young. You know, when 9/11 happened, I was just a kid. You know, I was like 5 years old, maybe. And it was just an awesome, awesome place. And just the historical component of the New York Stock Exchange is unbelievable. That is truly what America is about. You know, free market capitalism, entrepreneurship, success, and you could really feel it in that building, right? You know, drive, determination, and it was fantastic. I got to see the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I was standing on the floor during raining. It buffers. Usually in this city, when it rains, it tends to buffer a little bit. But yeah, it was just an awesome experience. I'm extremely appreciative of the experience and thankful for it as well. Met a lot of nice people. The Invella team were extremely inviting, very professional, and just really nice people overall. So I'm really glad I got to do it. I got to see the original copy of the Buttonwood Agreement, which is pretty much how the New York Stock Exchange started. That was on display. It was an amazing piece of American history, the New York Stock Exchange. It was an awesome, awesome place. So yeah, it was fantastic. I took some photos. If you want to go to my Twitter page, if you follow @WalksWallStreet, you'll be able to see some photos of the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. It's just an incredible place, an incredible piece of American history, and I'm just happy to be able to be there. It was a fantastic experience. All right, so we are here at Bryant Park. I'm so surprised that they actually have the Winter Village still up. Haven't been here in a while. It's raining a little bit. It looks like there's some event going on. People seem to be dressed up. Yeah, Western Mass Dave, no problem, man. It was awesome. It was fantastic. Hey, Jody Harris, what's up? Good to see you, Jody. Hey, the Mighty Bull is here. Welcome. Marcos is, are you invested in luxury jewels or watches? I'm not a big watch guy. I only own one watch, and that is the watch that my friend sent me for his wedding. I don't know. I think I'm just not a big watch guy. I have said in previous live streams that maybe down the line I may get into collecting for fun, but I just really don't know too much about it. Oh wow, Edward Adams' Winter Village won't close till March. Very nice. And there's actually a lot of people ice skating tonight. Hey, Bree Grahams, what's up? Just tried watching the State of the Union, and I can't stop clapping. Oh yeah, they usually do that at the State of the Union, right? They speak like 2 words and then they just clap for 20 minutes. Hey, Hawaii is here. What's up? Good to see you. I trust it's a lot warmer where you are than here. It's actually not too bad. You know, I landed, it was about 50 degrees, but you know, coming from 80 degrees, it definitely does feel a lot different. Yeah, there should, to Bree's point, there should be a limit on clapping at the State of the Union. It's like we want to hear from the president. We want to hear what the guy has to say.
Please exit the ice and return your skates.
And, if we just clap it for every 2 seconds, and all of the job creation. But I'm a little bit disappointed and concerned for the overall, I would just say, broader economy, because if you look at the non-farm payroll report, the vast majority of jobs that were created were in the hospitality sector, right? And I'm not saying that's necessarily, a bad thing. I'm not trying to, hate on those jobs or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it seems as if you look at the data, the vast majority of jobs that are being added are not, I would say, the very high paying jobs, if that makes sense. Now, funny enough, if you look at, which I think is a better proxy for the health, man, it's so windy, the health of the overall economy, that is the labor force participation rate. Let's head towards Grand Central Station. And the labor force participation rate is actually still well below where it was before COVID. So I think I actually programmed this in the Nightbot for you guys to have a look and see for yourself. And I would highly, highly recommend that you save this link to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and periodically take a look at it. I just have to remember the Nightbot command. I always do that. But the labor force participation rate now is 62.4% for January 2023. In February of 2020, the labor force participation rate was 63.3. So there's actually less people participating in the labor force now than there were pre-pandemic, which is concerning because we're almost going on 3 years since 2020, since like the major pandemic. And for some further context there, let's go all the way back and look at the data before the great financial crisis. So if you look at the labor force participation rate in January of 2007, the labor force participation rate was at 66.4%. So we have technically never even recovered from the financial crisis as it relates to people participating in the economy. We have still not recovered even from the great financial crisis, which is very, very concerning. Now, there's many reasons for that potentially. We'll see. Hey, Edward Adams is just for curiosity's sake. I priced the Bloomberg Terminal monthly subscription and is $2,000 a month, up to 6 screens allowed. Wow, usually it's like $2,500 a month. Usually that's the going rack rate, is $2,500 a month. It's a pretty good deal. Keith's transmission is breaking up. Audio is buffering. Yeah, I don't know why the internet is so poor. Internet has been very poor tonight. Hey, Alexander M says, hey Tom, I hope you're well. I'm currently applying for roles as a trainee lawyer in the UK. How do I best answer the question, what distinguishes you from the other applicants? Honestly, Alexander, I think you have to answer that yourself, honestly, because I think that's one of the questions that you need to, in a sense, answer yourself without any help, if that makes sense. Because I think you know yourself better than anybody, right? And I think the answer needs to be rooted in confidence. Does that make sense? So what is, and to sort of tie it back to the live stream, we always talk about having an edge, right? In investing and really anything you do, what is your edge? So maybe the way I would answer the question is think about yourself and think about what your edge is and try to correlate that edge with how you could help your firm, right? So I stand out from the other applicants because of XYZ. Here's my expertise. You know, what is your edge, right? And I think if you answer that, maybe in that way, I think you'll come up with a pretty good, decent answer, to be honest. But that's the way I would answer it. All right, team, we are now at Madison Avenue, 42nd Street. We are overlooking the beautiful Chrysler building tonight. Looks fantastic. As well as the One Vanderbilt building. Hey, Kurt Flirts, good to see you. Al Baker, what's up? Hope you're well. Brad's Brains, it's good to see you back in New York, Tom. Love the pics of the New York Stock Exchange. Like I said, it was a bucket list for me. Dude, it was a total bucket list for me as well. It was an awesome, awesome experience. It's such a cool building in there too. If you are like me and you sort of like the older style architecture, kind of like the New York Public Library, then you would really like it in the New York Stock Exchange. Mostly everything was all original architecture. Everything was beautiful, very well kept, very clean. And the floor, you know, on Monday, it wasn't that busy, the floor. Now, probably for obvious reasons, right? We've always talked about how not a lot of trading activity really goes on at the floor of the New York Stock Exchange anymore due to obvious reasons like algorithmic trading, programmatic trading, and the like, you know, digital market making. Because back in the day, I mean, you guys, you know, need to remember, if you think all the way back, people would literally trade, and the brokers and the traders at the floor would trade with physical pieces of paper, right? So that honestly required tons of people being on the floor. But now, you know, an average individual could just log on to their Charles Schwab account. You could log on to your, you know, Interactive Brokers or E-Trade account and place a trade from your smartphone, right? Literally in your bed. So a lot of things have changed, and it's also another cool reason for being inside the New York Stock Exchange to see the progression, right? I think one of the main things that the New York Stock Exchange really symbolizes is just the American exceptionalism for innovation and entrepreneurship and growth. And over the years, I mean, if you just want to talk about financial markets, I believe that the US stock market is the most efficient and fair market by far. I mean, you can't even compare it. Yes, you know, over the past, you know, couple of years, especially with a lot of this, you know, meme stock nonsense and people saying the markets are fraudulent, the markets are rigged. Number one, they're just wrong, right? They're just wrong. And number two, yeah, the markets aren't perfect, but I can guarantee you with 100% certainty, US markets are by far the freest and fairest markets, by far, bar none. Hey, photos from around New York, what's up? Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, so Edward Adams says, Tom, are you going to walk Grand Central Madison tonight? Lots of escalators. So I saw that. So one of my friends was texting me, and he said that, so I guess he timed it, right? He timed the amount that it would take to go from, you know, taking the train to Penn Station, then get to Grand Central, or just taking the Long Island Railroad to Grand Central Station, what would take less time? And it's not even about a minute difference, if you could believe that. Now, you may be saying, well, Tom, I mean, think about it like this. If you're taking the train to Grand Central Station, aren't you already there? Now, that's what I thought too. But I guess the station is so far underground that if you take the escalators, it takes you a couple minutes just to take the escalators from the ground floor to get up to the street level. I guess we'll go in here, might as well warm up a bit. So if you take the train, if you take the Long Island Railroad to Penn Station, if you take the subway to 42nd Street Times Square and take the shuttle to Grand Central, supposedly, allegedly, my friend timed it, it's almost about the same exact amount of time, if you could believe that. It's kind of crazy, but Wow, Sam Mangano says, I remember buying McDonald's stock in 2008 and had to mail a check. Jeez. Now, Sam, you know what's funny about that? So I actually had to do something similar, and I was going to talk about this on the live stream here. So I'm opening up. I was working with my CPA, and I'm moving. Well, I shouldn't say moving. We're just creating a new sort of retirement plan, a SEP IRA for people that are self-employed. And in order to open the account, listen to how crazy this is. Now, it may not sound crazy to a lot of you, but I'm used to doing everything electronically. But still today, in order to open up a SEP IRA, you need to print out physical pieces of paper, okay, sign them physically, and mail them back. And I just couldn't get my head around that. And yeah, I just couldn't get my head around that. And additionally, the first check, if you want to fund that account, I guess since it's a specific retirement account, you need to mail a check in the amount that you want to fund it with. So you have to mail that check physically to Charles Schwab. Kind of incredible, kind of crazy. I think I'm really, really positive here that I think in 10 years, we're going to be looking back and thinking that it just was so crazy that we would physically go into physical retail banks, like go into JP Morgan Chase, go into Citibank, and take out cash. I think we're going to be looking back in as close as 10 years to say, I can't believe we actually used to transact in physical pieces of paper. Hey, Steph UH says, since watching Tom, I want to visit New York. Definitely come, definitely come. More than welcome here. Forest Management says, I had to do that with my medical waiver from Michigan when I moved to New Mexico. Made me sign it and send it back by paper. Yeah, it's so archaic, right? Super, super archaic. Zozo Bob says, I don't even have checks. I think I have checks, but I've never used them. I think I've written 2 checks, and one was for the purpose of this SEP IRA. So here we are, team, in the center of the beautiful Grand Central Station, looking at my favorite spot here, the chandeliers and the American flag. Hey, Roz999 says, I am really concerned that if our automated system for transaction goes down, manual backups are not present. You know, I think there's going to be drawdowns for everything, right? And to that objection, right, I would, as a sales guy, I think of all of these things as objections. I would say this. Does anybody remember during the first cloud revolution, right? You know, you think of some of the first successful like SaaS companies like Salesforce, ticker symbol CRM. There was a big outcry, and there was even people going on big financial channels like CNBC and Bloomberg and Fox Business. You could actually watch some of these archived interviews, and they all said, you know, the cloud is never going to work because, you know, what happens if all of the data gets erased? It's gone forever, and security risks, and on and on and on. But at the end of the day, any sort of new technology, and this has happened over time throughout history, anytime you have any new technology, anything, it's always going to be met with resistance every single time. It doesn't matter what the technology is. You know, you could even talk about internal combustion engine vehicles, right? That was met with resistance even here in New York City, where we had one part of the city that was dedicated for horses and buggies and one part of the city dedicated for cars. So, I mean, are there drawdowns to everything? Yeah, but now pretty much everything is in the cloud, right? And we have mechanisms and fail-safes to back that data up. It's going to be the same thing with digital transactions and digital currencies anyhow, right? So now the main objection, I would say, by people that are resisting a digital currency is, well, the government could shut me down and the government could delete the money out of my account and yada, yada, yada. But just think about your everyday life, right? How many of you honestly, transact and pay for things in cash? Probably less than 10% of the chat, right? And I don't want to speak for anybody else, but if you think about it, you're probably transacting with a credit card, and now that credit card is morphing into a digital credit card on your phone. Maybe you have Samsung Pay, maybe you have Apple Pay, and pretty soon, I think, many stores won't even accept cash. So sometimes in New York, you walk into like a bodega or something, right? And they say, hey, no, we don't accept credit card, only cash. I think that dichotomy is actually gonna flip in 10 to 15 years. You're gonna walk into some place and the guy's gonna look at you behind the counter and you're gonna try to hand him a $100 bill. He's gonna be like, pal, what is that? What is that? I truly believe that. And yeah, you can have the conspiracy of the government who's gonna shut you down and go into your bank account, but here's my take on that. The government, if they really wanted to, the government could go into your bank account right now and siphon every dollar that you have. Like if they really wanted to, they're gonna find a way to do it, okay? If we found a way to stop the transmission of a Chinese spy balloon at 60,000 feet, they could take $25 out of your bank account. I mean, if they really wanted to, I think they could. Hey, my friend David Randall is here. What's up? He says just recently had a hard time paying a repairman because he didn't have point of sale. Interesting. Now, David, I actually paid for my driveway in cash, and I went to the bank and I had to pull out, not a significant amount of money, but, over, $3,000. And it was like total pandemonium in the bank. Like they could not wrap their head around why somebody was coming in and pulling out, $4,000 in cash. And it was just a really odd experience. And that just goes to show the norms that digital currencies and digital transactions are creating, that it is an abnormality for somebody to come in and pull out, over $3,000. And I was like, look, I don't even want to pull out the money either. And, but you got to do what you got to do. Hey, Dan says, is there enough physical money to even come close to replacing digital in a meltdown? No, there is not. So we run on a fractional reserve lending system. That's another good point. Who wrote that? Was that Dan? I forget. Dan Kane H. Yeah, so we run on a fractional reserve lending system, which means there is not enough physical paper currency and coins to cover like the actual float of money in circulation. Does that make sense? It is quite literally just digits on a screen. So that's another good point too. Steve CR says dollar pay all debts written on it. Alexander M says already happens here. No cash allowed in some of the college bars in my university. Wow. Really? I wonder why that is. At some of the... Now, here's... I'm about to say something that's going to be really controversial in the chat, but you guys know me. I speak my mind. It is undeniable that all across the country, right? It's not exclusive to New York. It's not exclusive to Miami or Chicago. It's, everywhere now, especially after the pandemic, of rising crime, right? Crime is undeniably on the rise in every major city in America. And I truly believe, oh, look at how cool this is. You could see the reflection of the Chrysler building on 1 Vanderbilt. That's a really cool shot. I never even noticed that. So you could actually see the reflection of the Chrysler in Vanderbilt. That's an awesome shot. Anyway, enough distractions. I truly believe that, let's say if stores do not accept cash, a major incentive for crime goes away. You mitigate crime risk to zero. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, government's going to, I get it. But if nobody walks around and carries physical cash, nobody's going to steal from you because you have nothing to steal. It's all digital. Interesting point. Let me read some of the chats here. Hey, Lee, says if the government did that, they would learn the true meaning of the Second Amendment. Yeah, I guess, that's why 2FA is good, right? You have checks and balances. And I think one of the biggest checks in the system is, the government should always have some fear in the people. And I think the U.S. government has that. Meld says even the farmers at farmers markets have Square for their payments. Paul Meddy says cash will always be here, baby. Hey, Dan Zhang says, Tom, why do we still have floor traders at the New York Stock Exchange? Are they prime brokers for big hedge funds or institutions? Yes, for both. So there are, but it's also, I don't really want to say tradition, but it's also, some firms will say, oh, it's better to work with a broker. You have a personal touch. Go to, for example, I think this will be a good example for what I'm trying to talk about. Rosenblatt Securities. Go to Rosenblatt Securities About Us page, or really any sort of main broker that's on the floor. That's just one I pulled off the top of my head. They'll always have in their About Me page or something like that, the personal touch of having somebody actually on the floor. So you pretty much don't need it, right? You really, really don't. But more of the activity that's going on down there is pretty much like a TV studio. New York, the CNBC, which was another cool thing I got to see. Scott Wapner was doing his live show right outside of where they ring the closing bell. So, to be quite honest, you really don't need the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, but I'm glad that they have it. To be honest. I'm glad that actual floor traders are down there. Richard Vogel says, Tom, how are the contractor prices in Miami? Very expensive, so I went with a local guy that was referred to me. Western Mass Dave says, Tom, speaking of driveways, it looks awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. This is the Yale Club. This is one of my favorite buildings in the entire city. I've never been on the inside, but the outside is amazing architecture here. So I have a really good friend that got a traffic jam here. I have a really good friend in Southern Florida that runs a pretty big real estate company. And he owns not only a lot of single-family rentals, so a lot of single-family homes, but a lot of multifamily as well. And he referred me to his concrete guy. So, yeah, I would. I'll put it this way: a lot of the main contractors that I was, putting it out for bid, or getting multiple, I would say, quotes or multiple prices. Insanity. The prices were insane. So to give you guys an idea, my driveway is about 500 square feet. Okay, and I got multiple $1,000. Perez says people would want to steal your phone. Everybody has one. Also your cards, even if you don't have private numbers. Yeah, well, that's the thing with having a phone, right? Everybody now that has a phone, you probably have some sort of an MDM on it, which is a mobile device management software. And let's say, God forbid, knock on wood, if somebody came up and stole my phone right now, would I be pissed off in the moment? Yeah, I would. I'd be pissed off. But I would just walk back to the office and make my phone a complete brick. So you couldn't access any of the information on it. It would totally remotely wipe all of the contents off of the device, and it would be useless. And when people start to realize that, they're not going to steal devices anymore. And in a lot of the new phones, by the way, let's say if you stole an iPhone with an eSIM card. So a lot of the new iPhones that came out, they don't even have a SIM slot anymore, if you guys notice. It's called an eSIM. And let's say, God forbid, your phone is stolen. you could go online and register that eSIM card as stolen, and now if a thief tries to resell that device or go into like a T-Mobile or a Verizon store and try to activate the phone, it's not going to activate. It'll actually come up in the system as stolen. So it does reduce, hey, we got a Vespa. Nice. It does mitigate crime, for sure. Hey, Ken Glass, what's up? Yeah, the cell service is horrible tonight. Really, really bad. Really bad. Ren 1018, good to see you. Christina Card says, Tom, today I met a financial expert from Miami at Capital One. She was a great listener. I am going through a spiritual low, but I will bounce back. Christina, I'm glad to hear that you're getting help, and I'm confident that you're going to bounce back with a vengeance, my friend. Never quit, keep going, always keep your head up. We support you here. Hey, Victor says, hold on. Victor says, hey, Tom from Seattle, I enjoy your live stream. I wonder how much streamers make money. Is it million? Oh, I have no idea, dude. Do I make $1 million from streaming? No. I think it's fun. It's fun. It's a good thing to do, and it's a good way to build a network. But then again, you know, a lot of my videos, right? You'll notice I do run advertisements on the videos, but every time we walk around the city, for example, you know, let's say if, you know, a Taylor Swift song is playing for like 2 seconds as a car drives by, it'll demonetize the whole video, and all the advertising will go to our buddy Taylor Swift. So a lot of my videos don't get monetized. So I don't really make anything. Hey, Sally is here. What's up? Good to see you. Ed Dunkel, what's up? Cynthia Beal says, is Bed Bath & Beyond closing? I think so. I think they filed for bankruptcy. And I think they tried to do a secondary offering on the stock. And I think the CEO came out and said, if this doesn't work, we're gonna go under. This is the JP Morgan Chase building right here. This is going to be Jamie Dimon's brand new office tower. When it's complete, Cammy G says it's snowing. No, it's raining, unfortunately. All right, we'll walk under the scaffolding. We will head up. Al Baker says Jamie Dimon putting in Bitcoin mining. Maybe in the basement there'll be a big mining operation. If there is, I'll help him set it up. No, but Jamie Dimon is really hates Bitcoin mining and all things cryptocurrency. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. But I think for now it's important. Let's quickly run through, I would say, some of the leading sectors in the market, because we've had a pretty big rally on Wall Street. I think that's undeniable to say, and price action has been pretty good. I think today was another follow-through day on the NASDAQ, and the breadth of the market is actually starting to pick up, which is a good sign. So we're having breadth increase, which means participation from other sectors and multiple stocks is actually accelerating. Now, if you think back to some of the live streams that we were doing as this market, or I should say even before the market started to roll over, This was before the major stock market sell-off. Here's the pink cause statue. And one of the most important things that we looked at to sort of forecast a major stock market sell-off was the thinness in the market. Now, does everybody remember when the S&P, the NASDAQ, and the Dow were trading near all-time record highs about a year and a half ago? And every single night on the stream, we would come on and we would say, if we look under the hood of the market, I must have said that about, 80 million times to the point of ad nauseum. The individual stocks, the growth stocks of the market were selling off with extreme force, but only the FANG, like the big mega cap tech stocks, were holding up and trading near all-time record highs. And I said, once those particular stocks start to sell off, you're really going to start to see a lot of bleeding off in the indices, and that's exactly what we saw. So what we're seeing right now is sort of the exact opposite of that. We're seeing a rally on Wall Street, but we're seeing participation from multiple sectors. And I would say the most important sector that we're seeing, or I should say industry group, the most important industry group that we're seeing participation in or from is semiconductors. Now, there's something called Dow theory. And Dow theory, in essence, you look at the Dow transports. And if the transportation or if transports were declining or selling off, that is a negative sign for the overall economy and the broader market. And in theory, when the transports would turn up and actually start to rally, that could be used as a buy signal. Now, this hasn't been proven, or it's really not, I would say, rudimentary on Wall Street to do this, but I've actually started to substitute semiconductors and swap out transports for semiconductors, if that makes sense. So one of the things that you could look at is the semiconductor index, ticker symbol SOXX, or the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index in itself. And if you see semiconductor stocks starting to rally or form a base and cross above the 50 and 200-day moving averages, that is a very positive sign for the broader based economy. For this reason and this reason alone. If you think about all of the new and emerging technologies that are really going to continue to power the 21st century and beyond, every single thing is going to have to be made with special microchips or semiconductors. So the theory there is, if semiconductors are falling off, and even more specifically, if you're looking at a specific earnings report from AMD or NVIDIA, and they're giving very poor forward guidance, well, that generally means the overall economy is not going to be doing so well. And you could use that as a proxy for earnings of other companies, right? If Ford isn't buying as many chips, if Amazon or Microsoft aren't buying as many chips for their data centers or their cloud, or Tesla, or on, that's not a good sign. Or Apple is not buying as many microchips for their phones. Well, there's probably going to be not a lot of demand for phones, right? So one of the good things about this rally is that we are seeing broader based participation from the semiconductor sector in and of itself. Guys, this is my favorite building in the city, as you know. This is the Seagram building. Just such a beautiful building. Dan Zhang says, Tom, have you been following the whole Hindenburg research report? I have. So what were they saying about that, Dan? That is the modern day Enron, like it's a big fraud. Vincent says, Tom, great knowledge of some of the buildings in New York and good financial talk. Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate it very much. TPAC 5000 says, evening crew, good to see you. Welcome, TPAC 5000. Yeah, Ed Dunkel, that's another thing. AI requires special microchips as well, cloud computing, all that stuff. Meta Mark Zuckerberg's company, Facebook. Now, here's another thing that may be quite contrarian in nature, but if we think about it, it's actually kind of obvious. Now, I've been seeing a ton of chatter on Twitter specifically about people that they're posting things that go a little something like this. They're like, Amazon just announced 18,000 layoffs. Microsoft announced, 8,000. Google or Alphabet announced 10,000. Salesforce just laid off a ton of people. I go to my LinkedIn and quite literally, mainly because the majority of my network is, working in tech, software sales, banking, things like that. Everybody says, hey, I woke up, I got laid off, it's horrible. Help me out, I'm looking for work, I'm open to work. But a lot of the stocks are rallying off of this news. Did anybody notice that? So literally on the day that Alphabet announced it's laying off a ton of employees at Google, the stock was rallying. Same thing at Salesforce. Salesforce announced a big layoff. Many people in the New York office were impacted, unfortunately. Stock was rallying. Same thing with Microsoft. And over the long run, and we've been talking about this as it relates to companies getting a little bit bloated during the pandemic, right? These are the two major fountains here at the Segram building. But here's the thing, especially for software companies, right? And this isn't exclusive to like the mega cap software companies. We're getting a lot of layoffs at, startups and mid cap companies. But here's the thing. If you are running based upon like a SaaS model, right? Like a software as a service subscription reoccurring revenue model, there's really two main metrics that are very, very important to look for. One of which is your retention rate. So let's say if I'm a company and I buy a piece of software on a subscription basis, am I just going to use the software for 3 months and then cancel that subscription? Or am I going to continuously stay on and pay for that in perpetuity, right? So the theory was, since we are coming off of this environment of extreme quantitative easing and cheap money, a lot of the main strategy in Silicon Valley or at any major SaaS company was, let's just grow the top line as fast as possible and lose money because money is so cheap and we could sort of defer losses in the future to one day grow a huge pipeline, a huge top line with a very low churn rate, in which case then we could try to increase operational efficiencies and drive costs down. And assuming we could drive costs down, we could, maybe lay people off that we don't need, or, reduce our overhead / office space, whatever you got to do to increase operation efficiencies and drive costs lower. If you can maintain that very, very strong revenue growth, well, then you are going to be a very, very profitable business. So I think it's normal for a lot of these tech companies to be rallying off of the news of people getting laid off, because these tech workers make a lot of money, right? They make well above the average, generally speaking, of what the average American makes. You're talking, 6-figure salaries, 6-figure bonuses, not for everybody, but for a lot of them. So look at the Twitter model, right? This is the last point I want to make and just sort of tie it all together. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, or I should say when Elon Musk overpaid for Twitter, everybody thought that he was crazy to buy the company and then lay everybody off. Does anybody remember that? And they said, he's laying off so many engineers, so many people, that Twitter is on the brink of collapse. The website's going to go down. There was reports from insiders saying that we are 2 days away from Twitter completely shutting down because we don't have enough people to run the company. I think there's like 500 people working for Twitter when I think there was over 15,000 people working there, and the website is running just fine. So I think this is saying to Wall Street that not to worry, if you can have a company like Twitter have all of these, thousands and thousands of employees, you fire almost everybody, and the company is running pretty much the exact same, if not better. Well, what does it mean for gross margins and profitability at other tech companies if they kind of adopt the same model? You're going to drive costs down, compensation costs, and assuming if you can run the business the exact same, if not better, corporate profits are actually going to go higher over the next couple of years. So that's sort of my rationale as to why some of these tech companies are rallying, or I should say a lot of these tech companies are rallying on Wall Street when you have these huge headlines of, company XYZ laying off 10,000 people. Everybody is all doom and gloom, but what do we talk about here all the time? Markets are forward-looking. They look into the future about 6 months out. So I don't think it's going to be Armageddon at these companies. I don't think that, especially a company like Twitter, Twitter's just going to go down. It's not going to survive because you laid off a ton of people. If you can prove that you can operate a profitable business without impacting customer experience with less employees, I think that's actually bullish long term. Any thoughts on that? Agree or disagree? Steve CR, what's up? Good to see you. Tortellini is here. Welcome. Yeah, War Walker, you're right too. Zoom cut folks as well. Now, I think with Zoom, the CEO announced that they're going to lay a ton of people off, and he's reducing his salary by 90%. Did anybody see that? Dan Zhang says, Tom, the main points of the report said that group is super leveraged, and Danny himself has used offshore shell companies to buy its shares to pump the price. Ooh, yeah, that's big fraud right there. If that's true allegations, that's going to be a big mess, if that's true. Wins. Brad's brain says 7,500 to 550, and the only changes are improvements in my mind. How worthless were the 6,950 employees? And that's the crazy thing though, right? Brad's brain makes a good point. Now, I wouldn't go as far to say these people are worthless, right? But it just goes to show corporate bloat is real. I think the vast majority of us has worked in corporate America, right? I've worked in corporate America, and I could tell you guys with certainty that corporate bloat exists and it's real, and people are getting paid a lot of money to do nothing. Without calling out individual people I know, but there's a lot of people that I've worked with in the past that I'm like, dude, like, you're making six figures and you don't do anything. Like, I don't even know what you do. Anyway, guys, this is the beautiful, the gorgeous, check this out. This is 425 Park Avenue. This is the newest addition to Park Avenue, home to Citadel and Citadel Securities. Now, I think there's about 500 employees, 500 Citadel employees that work here currently. I think Ken Griffin wants to take that to well over 1,000 by next year. And if you guys have not watched the video on YouTube, you really, really have to watch it. So if you go to, open another web browser and just type in 425 Park Avenue, they've actually done an entire walkthrough of the building. It's fantastic. And I would say the main theme of 425 Park Avenue is to create a space that employees actually want to come to work, and you're sort of persuading employees to come back to work. Because obviously what the pandemic has taught us is that hybrid work and remote work is here to stay. But there's some major companies, especially in consulting, on Wall Street and the like, that really want their employees to come back to the office. And what I would say is that nobody is going to come back to an office to work in a very outdated office building with cubicles from the 1970s. I know we've all worked in those type of office spaces. It's going to be easier to bring people back to the office if you work in a state-of-the-art, amazing space like we have here at 425 Park Avenue. So I would highly suggest, I think it's by Bloomberg. I think Bloomberg made the video. This building is fantastic. It is really, really amazing. I think they have multiple cafeterias in here. The views are to die for, obviously. And it's right across the street from 430 Park, where I work out of sometimes. And this is where there was that major jewelry heist. Does anybody remember that? I think that happened in November of last year. There was a major, major robbery right here, which is kind of crazy to think about because this is 56th Street. 57th Street is right there, and this is Billionaires Row. 432 Park Avenue, one of the most expensive buildings in the entire world, is right here. So you would never really think that there would be crime anywhere near here. But there was. Beautiful building, by the way. Hey, Bree Grams, what's up? Good to see you as always. On this little bit of a dreary night in New York. Joan K is here, what's up? Paul Medis. Good to see you. Hawaii says, I love my office cubicle, but I love working remotely more. Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult to pry a lot of people back. Oh, that reminds me. So there's a really, really good Twitter account that I would highly advise and recommend you guys follow. I think it's called, I'm recommending it. I can't even remember the name of it. But I think it's called I think it's at Real Estate Trent, I think. The real estate guy on Twitter. Anyway, he provides a lot of good insights. And he posted an interesting tweet the other day about how there's a lot of, let's just say, commercial office investors in the city that are hurting, and a lot of these deals are going back to the banks. And it's concerning, not only in commercial, like when you speak about office buildings, but also in the hoteling sector as well. Maybe I'll, after the stream, retweet that so you guys can see it if you follow at Walks Wall Street. Alex is here, says, have you thought about coming to Panama and getting to know our beautiful city? I have not thought about it, but now I am thinking about it, and it sounds pretty good, especially if the weather's going to be better than New York. So I would accept the invitation, and I'm excited to explore Panama. RP says, good evening, Tom. Do you miss Florida? I miss the weather, I'm not going to lie. I do miss the weather. It's definitely nice, having it to be 80 degrees every day. I just love the warm weather. I've always been sort of a big beach guy. Love to go to the ocean. Love being outside. So I would say maybe. Yeah. Hey, Felix is here. Says, hola, Tom and everybody. What's up, Felix? Thanks for joining us today. We are now coming up on Madison Avenue, East 56th Street here. Let me go back to the chat. Bree Graham says, I work hybrid. I like in the office and at home these days. I think that's the perfect mix for sure. Wow, Zozo Bob says, Tom, the Hertz CEO says he's buying 175,000 EVs. That's good news. Now, I think what we're going to do tomorrow, everybody, is try out the old streaming software and see if that works. I forgot to do it again today because I think I'm going to go blind at trying to read these teeny tiny comments. So we'll try out Prism live stream tomorrow. Hey, Alex, it's Tom. We have tropical weather and it's summer here in Panama. We have a mix of skyscrapers and housing. I would love to see that, man. I would really, really love to see that. Brad's Brains says, I'm working remotely in the office. I run KC in Houston office temporarily. Love that. Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, and I will say this. Obviously, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I live in the Miami-Dade County. And ever since I got that scooter, I was explaining this to my mom this morning. I said, it sort of turns Miami into New York City. And I'll sort of explain myself by saying, in New York, let's say if you live in Manhattan, right? And even, anywhere in the New York City area, pretty much you could walk outside your apartment and coffee is 1 block away. Your doctor is 2 seconds away. Everything is in walking distance, which I love. And that's something I love about New York is I don't have to drive. You guys know I don't drive. I don't have a car. So in Florida, in Southern Florida, everything is a little bit more spaced out. Unless you live in downtown Miami or like the Brickell location where we tend to live stream from a lot. Here we have the Trump Tower at 721 Fifth Avenue. This is actually the residential entrance, by the way. So if you live in an apartment here, either own or rent, you go in through these doors to the right. But if you work in an office, you go around the corner here, which you'll see. In any event, where I live, there are things in walking distance, but it's not like living in Manhattan. But with the scooter, you jump on the scooter and I'm anywhere I want to be in 5 minutes. And there's no traffic because the scooter, you just whiz in and out of places. So it turns it into New York kind of lifestyle, at least for me. And it's the weather that I love. I mean, I love 75 and sunny every day. But yeah, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. I think it's probably the best decision I've made is getting a place there to be able to take a break from just the very taxing winters in New York, because it's tough in New York City, right? Let's say in Manhattan, even Brooklyn, Queens, the outer boroughs, especially on Long Island, for those Long Islanders listening. The winter, it's not necessarily the cold that is so bad. It's every day is cloudy, windy. It's just like gray every day. And you feel, I don't know how to explain it. It's not depressed, because, depression is a very serious thing, which I'm very sensitive to, right? I have a lot of friends who suffer from real depression. But, like a seasonal, you just feel like a little blue, like a little down, like no energy. But every time I'm in Florida, so let's say if I spend a month in New York, right? And I spend 2 weeks in Miami, my mood and my energy levels, it's like you're flipping on a light switch. It's like I'm a different person. It's very strange, but it only happens during the winter. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's what I would say. If you can get a place or sort of build your life that way to, have the best of both worlds, so to speak, I mean, the productivity is going to go through the roof, because at least for me, some people like it dark and rainy. I don't. Not a big fan. GGNYC says I get the winter blues. Ethan G says I don't mind the cold weather that much, but it's the extremes that I don't like. That's true. And to be fair, I mean, guys, this year in New York, I think this has been technically the most mild winter we've had. Is that right? Steve CR. Funny. Meld says cold weather is fine. Cold and windy is not it. I agree. Yeah, it's not so much the cold for me either. I think Like, just look at a place like, Denver or, anywhere else in Colorado. It gets freezing there, but the sun is out, right? You could be skiing, but it's bright sunshine almost all year round. NATO says, what borough do you recommend for newcomers? I always recommend Manhattan if you could afford it. I think, being in Manhattan, I think you need to live here at least once. Now, I would never move away from New York City 100% ever. My two favorite places on earth are New York and Miami. So the ideal for me, or at least what I'm trying to work towards, is to be able to spend about 50% of my time in New York and 50% of time in Miami. That is what I want to do. I think especially when you're young, a lot of people, I think there's no place like being in Manhattan when you're just starting out your career, because I think the biggest factor, or the biggest thing for me at least, is when you're extremely young, you need to be getting around people who are very ambitious, very smart, very educated, and very motivated. And you are going to find people with all of those characteristics in New York City, bar none. So if you're a new college grad, I would advise you to move to a major city. Now, many people would be like, oh, but it's so expensive. I'm going to waste so much money. I kind of disagree with that. It's sort of like you got to pay to play, so to speak, right? If you stay in your little small town, right? Let's say if you're from Middle America or something, there's nothing wrong with it. But let's say if you just stay there and you never leave, well, it's going to be very difficult to grow your network and meet new people to do business with. There's a reason why major cities like New York, Miami, LA, anywhere Silicon Valley, anything, right, are expensive, because these are where people want to be. This is where people want to do business. So I think if you could just sort of pay the price, move to one of these cities, not only are you going to build a really, really good network of people, but you're going to learn a lot of stuff. That's what I would say. Hey, Nina's here. What's up? This is Bingo Tom, pay to play, kind of like that mindset. 3 grams says, I super agree with you, even in Phoenix, a big city with lots of opportunities. Yeah, I mean, any big city that people want to live, Phoenix, Arizona, Austin, Texas, these are expensive places. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to, pretend like it's not expensive. It's ridiculously expensive, especially in Miami now. I think Miami may be more expensive than New York. That's a good point. Marco says, I would move only for lots of money. Arum Zis, Tom's thoughts on Chicago. I've never been to Chicago, but I know a lot of successful people in Chicago. Chicago's big for finance. Actually, one of my best friends runs a hedge fund out of Chicago. I think one of the major problems, though, that I've been hearing from my friends in Chicago is the crime. But then again, I think, to be fair, I think crime is up in every major city, right? Now, you could argue bad politics here, bad politics there. I get that, and I understand, and I would agree. But I think it's not exclusive to one city, I would say. I think it may be worse in some cities, but I think if you live in a major city, I think you have to come to terms with the fact that there's going to be crime, right? More people, more crime. NATO says, what did you do for work before YouTube? Well, I don't do this as my job, man. I just do it for fun. But I was in enterprise tech sales I'll show you guys my favorite building. So I would sell software to, and telecommunications, tech, to big Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. But now, I actually work at a hedge fund now. I don't think I told you guys that, but yeah. So here we are at 157. This is my favorite building on Billionaires Row because this was the first original building to ever be built on Billionaires Row. And it was built by the Extel Group, and it's super cool because this entrance right here is the Park Hyatt New York. One of the most expensive and most luxurious hotels in the city. But the entrance to the left is the residences at 157 that actually shares all of the different amenities of the Park Hyatt. Now, speaking of hotels, everybody, what's interesting is, and speaking of the Hyatt, take a look at ticker symbol H. Hyatt actually hit a new all-time record high today. Did anybody see that? And a lot of the hotel stocks have actually been performing really well. A lot of the hospitality and the hoteling stocks have actually been leading the market or outperforming the market. If you look at Hyatt, if you look at Marriott, all of these stocks are trading at 52-week highs, and Hyatt today hit a new all-time record high. And we were talking about this because if there's so much talk of a recession, if there's so much gloom and doom, if you turn on the mainstream, financial channels, it's like the world is falling apart. It's fear, it's doom. But then how come all of these hospitality stocks are ripping? How come all of these travel stocks are doing really, really well? You would think in a recession, people wouldn't be out traveling and staying at hotels. It's a little bit of an interesting dichotomy there. So the only thing I would say about that is follow the trend of the market and don't get too emotional about the news. Here we have Carnegie Hall. Marcelo Gill says Miami is nice to visit, but in Orlando, the housing prices are still affordable. Near future, I'll buy a brand new house in Orlando over time. Yeah, Orlando's nice, but I think it's a little bit too landlocked for me. I need to be near the ocean. Dusty Cole, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Steph UH, appreciate you. Appreciate it very much, everybody. Yeah, I think it'll be a new good experience for me. But yeah, more to follow on that. It's been very busy, very, very busy. So yeah, Gary Carpenter says crime is everywhere these days. True. Hey, FredX, what's up? Good to see you, FredX. Richard Fogel says Renaissance Technologies. No, it's not at a big. It's not at a big quant shop. It is at a growth stock hedge fund, so a long short. And hopefully one day I could progress to running a part of the book at the fund. But for now, I'm in charge of raising money for a third fund. Roberta says, when I used to live in England, I worked in London for a couple of years. Best experience of my life and so much opportunity. Yeah, I mean, see, I agree with you. I agree 100%. Robert Hickman. London is a big city, really, really big for finance. And another thing about London is it's extremely, extremely expensive to live there, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, I think especially when you're young, you got to do it when you're young and build out a network of people that are very, very smart and get around people that are smarter and more successful than you to be able to learn from these people. And you're going to be able to do that in cities like New York, cities like London, and the like. But team, this is now beautiful Central Park Tower. This thing is a monstrosity here on Billionaires Row, right in between Broadway and 7th. This is actually the tallest residential apartment building in New York City, and I would say the top 3 floors, the top triplex, is on the market for $250 million. $250 million. Central Park Tower. Pretty good deal. Yeah, Brad, I agree with that for sure. Risk for reward, as they say. I agree with that 100%. Valor Rabbit, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, has there anybody, or is anybody right now in and out or watching the State of the Union address? I think when I get back on the train on the LIRR, I'm going to be checking in on that. But anything of note, any notable statements or anything being said there that may be affecting markets? I'm curious actually to see what futures are doing, if there's any major movements in the futures market due to this. Oh, Gigi says it's over now? Interesting. Billy says nope. Zozo Bob says he touted the economy first, as I'd expect. As I'd expect. Western Mass Dave says Joe has stopped speaking. It's wrapping up now. Got it. So nothing major. Okay. John says he's promising more taxes for the rich. Barber for Life says, did you talk about earnings? A little bit, but I think we're going to leave. I wanted to leave tomorrow to do a complete earnings wrap up. I knew today was going to be the State of the Union address, so we weren't going to have many people, as well as it's raining and windy. So I think tomorrow we're going to focus in a little bit more on corporate earnings. But I will say one of the things that we did cover pretty in depth today was a lot of the layoffs at a lot of these tech companies, and sort of a bullish narrative for those layoffs, right? And we sort of use Twitter as that proxy or an example of that, where, you know, if you can have a company that employed over 10,000 people, you have a new CEO that comes in and lays off 70% of the workforce, you know, leaving about 500 or so employees, and the company still runs as normal and even maybe a little bit better. Well, what are a lot of the big CEOs and even board of directors at a lot of these other big tech companies? They're going to be like, whoa, guys, look what Twitter just did. What percentage of our employees are actually 100% necessary, right? And, you know, there's been a lot of, I would say, posting on social media that I've been paying attention to and looking at, where, you know, people are like, look at these tech workers, you know, they're making these cringy, you know, day in the life TikTok videos, which they are cringe, they are cringy. But I think these are just like interns, just excited about the job, right? I don't think that's what all of these tech workers do all day. At least, I mean, I didn't do any of that stuff when I worked in tech. I think a lot of those videos, people, it's easy to like pick one thing and then extrapolate that and say, oh, it's everybody's doing that. I don't think that that's the case. I do think that there's a lot of people who the jobs have a lot of duplicity, where one job could easily be done by one person, or, you know, you can consolidate 5 jobs into one easily, in my opinion, especially on sales teams, right? So during my tech sales career, I was on a team. Well, when I was in SMB sales, the teams are a little bit bigger. But when I was on an enterprise sales team, The teams are smaller. Teams are a lot smaller. And you'll have like 8 people on a sales team. And only about 3 people are really blowing it out of the water. And the bottom 2 people are selling nothing, like virtually producing nothing. And they're just eating off of their base salary. So I think a lot of companies are going to be looking at that and saying, okay, we are going to whack all of our bottom performers that we really don't need, that we could have kept on when money was cheap and we were in a good economic environment. But now, we're just going to focus on increasing our operational efficiencies, and anybody who's not producing is going to hit the bricks. And I think that's usually how corporations are run, but with over 12 years of quantitative easing, it's sort of been a cash cow for everybody, whether you produce things or not, unfortunately. Team, we are at Columbus Circle. This is the Deutsche Bank Towers right here. Out of the right tower is the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. Susanna Q4, what's up? The Mighty Bolus here, welcome. Richard Vogel. Oh, did he really? Renaissance Technologies donated a lot of money to Stony Brook? I didn't know that. Cynthia Beale, welcome. John says, mostly palpitudes and sound bites, typical State of the Union address. David S. says, agree, Tom. It's sad for people to lose their jobs, but increasing operational efficiency is essential. I agree. And, I sort of made this case about a lot of the tech workers that were losing their jobs. I posted this on Twitter as well. I said, if you really think about it and you stop the pandemonium for a minute, and losing your job is a very emotional experience. But I'm not trying to mitigate that. But if you keep your head and you sort of, take a few deep breaths, what you'll find out is that the average tech worker, it's taking them about 3 months for them to find another job, which is about 50% less than what it is normally. Usually if you, God forbid, you lose your job, it's about 6 months to find a new one. That's usually, the standard. But now it's about 3 months to find another job. So let's say you worked at Google, right? You were making a 6-figure salary at Google. Now you're laid off. Well, if you looked at the document that Google sent out to all the employees, they're paying about 6 months of severance, okay? So if you make $100,000, you're gonna get a check for $50,000, right? Split up over those months. If you make 200, you're gonna get a cash payout, split up over those months of 100,000. Now, assume that you had a job, we're getting paid, 6 figures, you got the severance, but you now get a job after 3 months. It is very possible that 2023 could be the highest income producing year that you've ever had in your life. And it was because you got laid off. So it's kind of crazy to think about, but if I had to bet, I think the majority of tech workers who have gotten laid off this year are actually going to have their best financial years of their entire life this year. Because, again, look at the data. Don't get emotional. It's going to take you 3 months to get another job. That job is probably going to pay you the same, if not more, than what your previous employer paid you. So you're getting the 6 month severance and a whole new basic salary. It's essentially, you're going to at least make 30% more this year, 100%. Sam Plays says, can you go down to Wall Street? Not tonight, maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow we'll definitely make our way over there for sure. Wow, Who Dat Daves is $1,100 for the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. Yeah, Hyatt Hotel I think is almost the same, maybe $900. Dan K&H has improved tech and AI. Seems likely to permanently eliminate some of the workforce. I agree. But I also think simultaneously it'll create new jobs as well. I think for every job that AI destroys, it's probably going to simultaneously create about two. Mona D, good to see you.
I mean, now I do for my classes, but for
but guys, we are coming up on 60th Street, and it is about 10:30 p.m. I think we are going to conclude the stream, but we will be back tomorrow live at 8:30 p.m. If you guys want to join us tomorrow we are going to be doing an in-depth dive into a lot of the companies who have been reporting their corporate earnings. So we are going to talk about tech earnings. We are going to talk about Chipotle that reported today. And we are going to do a deep dive analysis. We are also going to be doing some earnings forecasting for the S&P 500 for the entire fiscal year of 2023. So thank you everybody for joining the live stream tonight. We will see you tomorrow. If you're new here, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And we will see you here tomorrow. So Ryan Iglesias, thank you so much. Marcelo Gill, Joan K, Victor, Bree Grams, thank you so much. Joseph Hardaway, Abdullah, Gary Carpenter, David S, appreciate you as always. Teresa Diaz, Chris Beeman, thank you. Zozo Bob, appreciate it. Karupa Patel, thank you. Sam Plays, appreciate it very much. David S, Billy, the Nightbot. Joan K, Zach Drew, into the Mighty Bull. Have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. And I'll see everybody right back here tomorrow.